Hey everybody, this is Matthew here with Tabletop Shenanigans. Unfortunately, today we cannot bring you a battle report. We're actually kind of locked in a little blizzard and we can't get out. Thankfully, I do have all the equipment here that I can send to Phoenix and we can go ahead and provide some kind of content to you guys. We definitely appreciate you guys sticking around to watch this. Today, we're going to go ahead and go over a few maybe game-winning tactics for you. This is some things that you can use to improve probably what I would say the most difficult phase, the assault phase. And it's not necessarily the attacking part that's the most difficult, it's the maneuvering. There's a lot of finite things you can do to better position yourself to get more advantages, not only with movement, like where you're going to place your units and who you're attacking, but what kind of units you can grab and touch when you're doing your initial charge, your pile in, and then your consolidate. Some things you can use to kind of help improve on that and to get better results with the charge phase. So we have a little scenario set up here for you guys today. We're gonna have a couple of different things to show you here to hopefully help make your experience with the charge phase and the combat phase go a little bit smoother. All right, so we're going to jump right into this here. First and foremost, I must say, this tool right here, it's a little 3-inch, 2-inch, 1-inch ruler. Games Workshop sells them. This particular one's Imperium and Nurgle. Death Guard. This is from 8th edition. I'm sure that there's one for 9th edition. There's all different styles. You can get it, not Games Workshop. But this little tool right here is huge, especially when you get into the close proximity of charging. Being able to measure 3 inches for a pile-in or consolidate very quickly and accurately with one of these will make a big difference, not having to get your big ruler in there. And then make sure you're in an engagement range within an inch. 2-inch, make sure you stay within coherency, which is huge. This tool right here is a lifesaver for the combat and charge phase. So yeah, let's get into this here. So we set up a little scenario here. And you should be able to see it now, switching to the other camera. So we have some Harlequin troops and some Necron Immortals, Warriors, and a Cryptek Technomancer right here. All right, so the very first thing that you want to do is obviously roll the charge. You're going to declare charges. The nice thing is positioning here. You'll notice the way that we have the Harlequins positioned is a way so that they cannot be overwatched. You're out of line of sight. Being out of line of sight is huge because then you just can't get overwatched. You know, they could spend the 1 command point to overwatch here. With Tesla, it's usually really effective. Just keep in mind what's shooting at you. If it's something like Tesla, obviously getting 10 shots there, exploding 6s. If they get 2 6s, that's 4 hits, wounding you on 3s. And then you have a 4-up invulnerable save, you could easily lose 2 or 3 guys in Overwatch. And I've seen it happen lots of times to myself. So positioning for that is crucial. You definitely always, if you have the opportunity to be out of line of sight before you declare your charge, you definitely want to do that, especially with Harlequins because they do ignore terrain and units for the charge phase. Even without Harlequins, troops will be able to just move directly through ruins. So that wouldn't be an issue at all. Obviously, it's going to depend on what terrain piece that you have set up. So it will change from time to time. However, it's important to know the terrain that you're using, what you've declared it, what it is. If this is a solid structure, obviously your regular troops won't be able to move through it. So you'll have to be able to measure around it. And that may affect your decision to do that before declaring your charge. But make sure you know what terrain piece you have set up, what it's declared as, if your units can move directly through it, if it's a ruin. If there is windows in it, make sure that you're outside of that inch on both sides. They're not touching it, you're not touching it. Line of sight, blocking, you want to make sure of all that stuff before you declare your charge because you don't just want to go ahead and give up 3 of your 5-man squad before you even get into combat. So you'd roll your charge. For this instance, we'll just say we got a 7. All right, so measuring up a 7 here, we'll be able to move in here. Now, one thing that's very important is when you're placing your units, you're going to want to make sure, and I'll use my 1-inch ruler here, you want to make sure that you're within engagement range there, but not touching the base. And this is going to be important for later because a part of piling in is you have to finish your move, your pile in, closer to the nearest enemy unit. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to have to just go straight in, but just closer. So we'll finish moving everybody here really quick. We'll just show you guys what it's going to look like here as we come in. And after we have the first unit within range, it doesn't necessarily matter how close the rest of them are. All right, so then we do the rest of our charges. Now say this is our only charge. So now we're going to go ahead and do our pile-in move. So we get 3 inches to move here, and all we have to do is finish. This model has to be closer to this model at the end of its movement. So as long as we come around here for 3 inches and finish, so now that we've closed that gap. So there was about ½ an inch of gap. Now there's just a little bit of gap right there. That'll allow us to move around to this side. Now this is important because in the event that we do kill this unit, we're now going to be within 3 inches for a pile-in or for consolidation to be able to hang on to that warrior squad. So that's really, really big to be able to do that. And it's very important that you think about that before you place your first model and always want to keep that gap. And then same thing here, we'll just do their 3-inch pile-in here so that they finish their move closer to the model. But you never want to touch the base. Make the opponent, if they get a chance to fight back, make the opponent move in to touch bases. Because you want to be able to maximize your movement to get other units within 3 inches so that you can then tag them as well. This is huge. Just little tactics like this will go a long way in improving your close combat game. And stuff like this is huge because if I killed them in their previous position, let's just say I went straight in, my unit fought, they completely annihilated this immortal squad. Not a problem. It happens all the time. They're 1 wound models. They're going to die. Now checking my 3 inches for consolidate. I move them up, but I never actually made contact with the warrior squad. That means here in just a second after my opponent's turn, he's going to be able to move and then shoot. And it's probably going to spell disaster for my poor little my poor little troop there. They're not going to make it very long. So it's very important in the charge phase that you're thinking about what's my next move. If you understand the power of your army, like Harlequin troops, I'm going to get 25 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s against immortals because they're toughness 5. Wounding on 4s, I'm most likely going to be able to kill this unit of 5 immortals in close combat, especially if I have something like a troop master or something, another stratagem I use that's going to allow extra hits, rerolls, anything like that. Not just Harlequins. Any army will have different things that you can do, different tactics you're going to use and stratagems that you're going to use in close combat to more effectively kill your opponent. Same thing with warriors. If it was the other way around, warriors have a way that they can boost their strength coming into combat, so it's more likely that they'll wound against other toughness 4 creatures that they're fighting, like Space Marines or other Necrons, because everybody likes Necrons, and I see lots of Necron v Necron. This is all super important because if in our other scenario, our first scenario, where I was able to get within that inch, now that unit has to fall back. They don't get the opportunity to shoot me for free. So I've essentially, he has 2 options at that point. He can either, obviously he's going to get a chance to fight back. And then if he fights back, say he doesn't kill all of them, which is a possibility unfortunately, but less likely. If he doesn't kill all of them, he has 2 options. He can either fall back and not shoot this round, as long as he doesn't have a Royal Warden around. If he has a Royal Warden around, it doesn't really matter, because he's just going to fall back and shoot you anyways, albeit at a -1, which is nice. But he'll have 2 options. So he can either fall back and shoot, or I'm sorry, he can either stay and fight, which means I'm going to get a fight first again on his turn. So when we turn it around and he decides to stay in combat, once he's elected all his charging units and done them, I will get to pick the first existing combat, which is this one, and I'll get a fight with them first, which is going to give me an even greater chance of survival. Or he can fall back and not attack, which means I'm just going to charge him again on my turn, as long as they survive. Puts me in a good position to be in control of the board, because I'm forcing him to move while I'm holding my ground. It's giving me better board control. So it's all very, very important as far as getting into positioning from your initial charge so that you can then pile in an advantageous way. And then in the event that you do wipe out the unit, you can consolidate in a way that's going to definitely help you out in the long run. This is huge. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you see with people playing at the LVOs and stuff like that. This is the stuff that they're doing to maximize their chance of winning, because combat is a big part of the game, and it probably is the hardest, most technical part of any of the phases. Movement, shooting, all very straightforward. Combat is when things get tricky with interrupts and stuff like that. So it really helps a lot to just have a firm grasp on everything that your army can do. We'll just kind of go really quick here. And we have the same deal. Now, Harlequins, of course, have the ability to move over stuff. So in that same situation where I'm back here and I'm denying, I think they were right over here. I'm denying line of sight by being outside of the train piece. They're outside of the train piece here. So they have no line of sight at firing here. Now, say you get crazy, you roll a 12 or something like that. Harlequins, one thing to know is they can ignore models on the charge. So I can effectively, without, again, you want to make sure that you're not touching. You want to be outside of that inch or outside of base contact so that you can finish closer. The further out within your engagement range you can be, obviously the better. It gives you more chances to move, and then it gives you more leniency in where you need to be. But with a 12-inch charge, then when I do my pile-in move, again, go back to your handy tool here, I can actually pile in 3 inches, but just finish closer to that base. So then, in this scenario, when I got a big roll, because I can ignore the train and come straight over with Harlequins, is I'm actually going to be able to, once I wipe this unit out, again, in the event that I wipe this unit out, I'll be able to not only pile in and touch the warriors, but I'll be able to grab onto the Technomancer as well, which is, again, even better because now I'm not only holding 1 unit, I've effectively taken out 2 units for the round. With the big changes to flying units not being able to fall back and shoot, if you can do this and there's a line and there's tanks or any kind of vehicles, that's also huge. I mean, vehicles can still shoot, but you're severely limiting the amount of targets that he can actually shoot. So he comes down to the option of only shooting the units he's touching, which means stuff like your jet bikes, or again, switching armies. If you're playing as Space Marines and you have a unit of 5 assault intercessors that have done this, all of a sudden your gladiators, your repulsor, your executioner tanks are all now safe from being shot by your opponent's executioner tank or a annihilation barge or whatever it happens to be. It gives you a lot more protection. I mean, you're going to sacrifice some units most likely, but keeping your big stuff alive, so then in turn on your turn, you can have the opportunity to shoot at them, repositioned out of line of sight if you need to. It's just going to open up a lot of options for you. So being very aware of where you're moving your models in close combat on the charge is going to change a lot of different factors in the game for you. This is all super helpful stuff. If you're playing with something like, I know, really big right now, Deathwing. Deathwing Terminators obviously don't have the option to go over the building, so you're going to be limited to what you can do, but you can still utilize the same strategies with Deathwing Terminators because, again, you roll your charge here. If you can get something high like a 9 or a 12, always use all of it. Finish as far away from your model within engagement range as you possibly can. So that way, as you're moving then for your 3-inch pile-in, and I should probably move these Harlequins out of the way because they are in the way now. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you can move your full 3 inches while still finishing just slightly closer to that model there. Then in the event, and then if you have 5 Deathwing Terminators, it's more than likely that you definitely just killed 5 Immortals because they would be gone. They're off the table. Then your 3 inches will still get you into engagement range of both models there. And this is huge. Again, you want to do this because locking more units up is always going to be a huge advantage to you. Now, in this instance, I definitely want to do that with my Deathwing Terminators because I know your 10 Warriors and your 1 Crypt Tech Technomancer are not going to kill 5 Deathwing Knights. And I've effectively protected them from other shooting unless if you fall back. There's not really an option not to fall back in that case. They have to, and I've taken 2 units out of the fight, and that's big, especially if it's like a full 20-man blob. That's going to be huge because I'm sure that my 5 Deathwing Terminators, or my Deathwing Knights, are going to be able to outstand 20 attacks from the Warrior squad. So I definitely want to get into combat with them, lock them up, take that shooting out, and then protect my Deathwing Knights so that I can use them later on more, juicy targets, whatever it needs to be. So this is going to be really big. And hopefully this is some information that you either knew and now you understand it a little bit better, or if you didn't know it, you now know, and you can use this more to your advantage in the future. It's really big. It helped me a lot once I got the grasp of how to maneuver units in close combat. It really did. I've played Blood Angels for a very long time, and I always felt like my guys died. Like my troops would charge in immediately. They would usually kill whatever they hit, and then they would just get roasted because they'd be standing out in the open and dead because I didn't take the time to remember to pile in and then after consolidate. It's really big. That's 6 inches of movement that you can move effectively towards your next target. You're always thinking about your next target, what's coming up next. It's not necessarily, well, this unit, if you're charging in, hopefully you've already determined that this unit can kill this unit that you're charging. So now what's next? What can I do after this? You always want to think about things like when you finish your charge, are you within 3 inches? Because if your opponent can then just heroically intervene into your models, that could spell disaster. Although with the new rules for heroic intervention, it may even help you if they decide, like in this situation where we had it before. And this is good on the receiving end of a charge. Think about this. The way that the rules are set up now, unlike it was in 8th edition, if he decides to heroically intervene here with his Crypt Tech, I'm still going to be resolving my attacks first for my Deathwing Knights. And I can then, once I do my consolidate, I can move more units within an inch of the base here. So if I had my squad, which I happen to have on my Deathwing here, if I had my squad lined up like this where nobody's touching base, I can then pile him in so that he's within an inch. Now I have 2 models that can fight his Crypt Tech when I only need the other 3 to kill these 5. So effectively, he's given me a free kill on an HQ character if he decided to pile in. So you definitely want to think about that when you are, say if I was playing Necrons in this instance, I most certainly would not want to do that because I know that I have no invulnerable save and the power of the Deathwing Knights is pretty tough. I mean, they're gonna punch through. I've seen 5 of them, well technically it was 4 at the time, 4 of them kill the Void Dragon before. And so they're pretty strong. So I definitely wouldn't want to send a Crypt Tech with no invulnerable save into a squad that has the potential to fight before I do. So definitely be thinking about that before you just start throwing characters into the fray. What's their chance of survival, because they're not going to get a fight first. And definitely want to be thinking about that. And again, it's very important that you are consolidating, or I'm sorry, doing your pile-ins correctly so that you're not touching bases when you first initially charge, so that way you can finish your movement closer. Because the moment you touch base, it's going to break up your line. Because now I can't shift the models here. Like I could continue to move them in their pile-in, but now I have to worry about coherency within 2 inches because I can no longer move this model. Once he's touching the base, I can't move any closer to the nearest enemy model, so I can no longer move that model. He's already touching base. So I can't technically finish my pile-in closer because I'm as close as I can get to that model. So definitely think about that. Never touch the base. You always want about like ½ an inch if you can help it. ½ an inch will give you plenty of movement to move around so that you're still not touching base. Always don't want to be touching base. All right, one other thing to consider really quick. We're gonna go ahead and reset over here. One thing to consider is my secondaries. For instance, we'll say that this is the table quarter right here. I'll just draw an imaginary line right down here. Now say if I was playing engage on all fronts, this is gonna be big. I roll my charge roll, my units are back here. Say we got something like a 9. Again, we're gonna be able to move around as far up as we can, and remember we wanna stay outside of that inch. So that way, when we do our pile-in move, and we wanna make sure we move our whole 9, I don't know, I was just dropping models, and that's a bad habit to get into, especially in the charge phase, is you wanna measure because this is gonna be big. When I do my pile-in and I move my extra 3 inches, if I can get all of these units up here closer or close enough, and I wipe this unit out and I've finished my move, when I do my consolidate and I move my additional 3 inches, if I can then get that extra 6 inches to get this unit across our proverbial line, I just also scored additional points for engage on all fronts. That's 6 extra inches of movement is huge in more ways than you think about at the time. You're just like, oh yeah, I get 3 inches to move closer. That's big because it's locking up units, that's getting engaged on all fronts, it's getting to different quarter panels, it's moving on to objectives. It's really big. I mean, it makes a huge difference to your game, being able to utilize both your charge, or I'm sorry, all three, your charge, your pile-in, and your consolidate. So that's kind of where we're gonna wrap it up today. I've been kind of rambling on for a while now about how important this is, and I do strongly agree that this is a very important phase of the game. Your charge, your initial charge, I mean, rolling big. Sometimes you don't roll big and it happens and there's nothing you can really do about it. And you're just gonna kind of have to get into combat the best way. Always try to leave that space though, because even if my charge ended and I was, my whole squad is still back here, and we'll just drop these guys in right here, I can still use that 3 inches to get up. I can then use, after I've killed the unit, I can use that 3 inches to consolidate. With slow units like Terminators, I'm not so worried about leaving them out in the open like I would be about leaving 5 troop for Harlequins. But with them being so slow, it's gonna make the world of difference to get that extra 6 inches closer to your opponent. Because in this situation, if we're this close to each other, unless if he advances and moves away, if he just falls back his 6 inches, we're still, after I move my 6 inches, we're looking at a 3-inch charge. I mean, that's almost guaranteed the next round that I'm gonna make it to where I need to go. So you always be thinking about that too. It's all about placement, movement, board control is huge for competitive play. So again, to cover these 3 points, and I'm sorry, rambling here, it's huge. Charge. Always make sure you measure each individual model. You wanna make sure that you're gonna get your maximum distance, so that way you can cover the most ground, especially with super slow units like Terminators, because you're not going to get a lot of options. If you're playing White Scars, of course, you can advance and charge. Harlequins can advance and charge still. It's not going to be as crucial. But if you're playing something like Deathwing or just your Ultramarines with regular assault, or assault intercessors or assault troops or an assault squad, without jump packs, every bit of movement is going to be huge because it's going to guarantee future charges, not just your immediate charge. Your pile-in is huge, 3 inches. Always make sure that when you finish your charge move, you give yourself a buffer so that you can continue to move the unit further towards the next squad. And then again, your consolidate. Remember, this is big, and I see it a lot. And in fun games, it's fine. Competitive wise, you definitely want to be thinking about this because it goes, once you declare a unit to fight, you then do their 3-inch pile-in. After the fight is finished, you do your consolidate. So you don't pile in, fight, come over here, fight, and then come back and do your consolidate. You got to do those 3 immediately. Or do those 2 immediately. Pile in, fight, consolidate. That's the order that it goes. So it's going to be really important for you to understand that. And make sure that you use it properly. And hopefully this helps some. Hopefully you can take this knowledge and the next time you get to get out and play with a friend, or even if you're playing online, you'll get to go ahead and use this to your advantage to hopefully win some games, because it does help. This is real good. Hopefully you enjoy it, like it, share it, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can also support us on Patreon at The Tabletop Shenanigans. We definitely would help that so we can bring more videos like this, get more models painted up, more tables built, and improve our studio audio and video quality to bring you better videos in the future. Thank you.